My research topic was boundary objects theory. This theory was developed because while integration is desirable, it is also difficult because it involves people from different functional backgrounds coming together to collaborate. They each have established beliefs, preconceived notions, and qualified ways of working. These differences can stall cooperation even when intentions are good, and can make communication and knowledge sharing difficult. The more different the people, the more difficult cooperation becomes. One industry where this is extremely relevant is the scientific community, where you have scientists from different fields coming together. For example, this is the 2020 Mars Preservation Team that includes scientists and engineers who are responsible for building, testing, launching, flying, landing, and driving the Mars rover. Then, once the Mars rover had landed, they need teams to collect, categorize, and analyze the data. As you can imagine, cooperation among this many diverse set of people was most likely difficult, but it was also necessary. This miraculous feat required hundreds of people with different skill sets, priorities, needs, and ways of working to bridge their differences and speak a common language in order to have a successful mission. Sociologist Susan Lee Starr and biologist James Griesmer were studying the Museum of Vertebrate Zoology in Berkeley, California, when they encountered a scientific community with a diverse membership who depended upon cooperation. They observed that while consensus, or unified agreement, among scientific communities was rare, cooperation was common. This was a departure from established research at the time that contended that consensus was required for cooperation. You may ask, why is cooperation without consensus an important insight? Because cooperation among diverse groups is important to facilitate everything from landing a rover on Mars, building a car, getting a new toothpaste on the market, or tackling climate change. Each of these requires different groups to cooperate, while still allowing room for disagreement. Starr and Griesmer were inspired to further explore how the scientific community created an environment where cooperation among different actors was possible. The result of their research was boundary objects theory, which identifies a framework that uses tools called boundary objects to enable cooperation among a diverse set of contributors. A core aspect of boundary objects theory is the reliance on a common language. Therefore, it's important that we first work to define a consistent understanding of what a boundary object is. When you think of a boundary object, this is probably what comes to mind for you: a thing of substance that creates a border, like a gate or a fence. However, when Starr and Griesmer talk about it, they use the term differently. In their parlance, a boundary refers to a shared space where tools or objects facilitate cooperative actions. Boundary objects temporarily create a bridge between groups with different perspectives through tools that support collaboration and effective communication. By fostering an environment that uses boundary objects, a cross functional group is able to form a common language with a shared framework that enables the transfer of knowledge despite their differences. Boundary objects help to connect the group by identifying tools that are familiar to each of them, despite the fact that they may be used differently by each group, and they are shared throughout the collaboration process. Let's use this map of Yosemite National Park as an example. A map is a common tool that everybody should be familiar with. If you're a camper on a family vacation, you're going to use this map for recreation purposes, to find a campsite or points of interest. However, if you're a scientist, you may use the map to find specimens or flora to study. If you're a park ranger, you're seeing work and all of the responsibilities that you're required to manage. Therefore, while the map itself is a common tool, or a boundary object, it is used differently depending upon the group in which you belong. As a result, boundary objects need to be flexible enough to be relevant and adaptable to each different group, yet sturdy enough to maintain a concrete meaning. They need to be pliant enough to encourage both diversity and harmony. Starr and Griesmer had originally identified 4 categories of boundary objects, but that list continues to expand. Some examples of tools that many of us are familiar with that could be boundary objects are standardized processes that establish a common way of working and a common language among groups, a selection of case studies that provide a common reference point, engagements such as meetings and workshops that delivered a shared experience, assets such as toolkits or materials. Each of these things can be common across groups and have a concrete meaning, but, like our map of Yosemite National Park, are adaptable and can be used in many different ways. They have a different meaning across groups, but can be used as a bridge to create a shared space which facilitates communication and knowledge sharing. A boundary object gains significance and specificity as groups begin to apply it to their problem solving. Essentially, boundary objects are a thing of action, and they need to be used in order to be effective. Otherwise, they are passive and useless. They are most useful when they are standardized as part of ongoing decision-making and continue to grow over time through interactions. In conclusion, boundary objects theory is a framework for facilitating cooperation among a diverse set of actors. It does this by creating a space where common tools that, when used, establish a shared language and consistent processes. The use of these boundary objects creates a bridge between groups and enables cooperation, even without a need for consensus.